The 5 spiritual traps that keep you from Jesus' peace. Have you ever felt that no matter how much you achieve or how hard you try, true peace still feels out of reach? Why do so many of us, despite having so much, still feel restless, disconnected, or weighed down by life's burdens? With warmth and compassion, invite the audience in. You're not alone in this struggle. We all long for peace, but sometimes we don't realize there are hidden traps, spiritual traps, that keep us from experiencing the deep, lasting peace that Jesus promised. Introduce the concept. Today, we're going to gently uncover the 5 spiritual traps that block us from this peace. These traps don't just affect us as individuals. They ripple through families, communities, and even societies. But here's the good news. Jesus offers a way to overcome them, a way to find true peace for ourselves and for the world around us. Highlight the relevance. Think about the challenges we face today, conflicts that divide us, the pain of inequality, and the harm we've caused to our environment. These struggles aren't just external. They often reflect deeper spiritual issues within us. By recognizing these traps, we can start healing from the inside out, both as individuals and as a global family. Share the goal. Together, let's explore these 5 traps, not with judgment or fear, but with love, curiosity, and a desire to grow. As we uncover them, we'll also discover how Jesus leads us toward freedom, healing, and peace, not just for ourselves, but for all of humanity. Let's begin this journey to the trap of materialism. Understanding materialism. Materialism is something we all encounter in our lives. It's the belief that wealth, possessions, and social status are the keys to happiness and success. But let's pause and reflect. Do these things truly fulfill us, or do they leave us wanting more? Jesus spoke directly to this in the Bible. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, but store up treasures in heaven. Matthew 6:19-20. These words remind us that the things we cling to in this world are temporary. The peace we seek cannot be found in material possessions, but in the eternal treasures of love, faith, and connection. The impact on our lives. On a personal level, materialism often leads us into a cycle of anxiety, greed, and endless comparison. We buy something new, feel joy for a moment, and then quickly return to feeling incomplete. It creates a false sense of security, one that fades the moment we lose what we thought we needed. On society as a whole, materialism drives inequality, with wealth concentrated in the hands of a few, while many go without. It fuels environmental destruction, as we exploit resources to satisfy endless consumer demand. In materialistic cultures, profits are prioritized over people's well-being, leaving communities fractured and the planet in peril. Breaking free from materialism. Jesus invites us to live differently, free from the trap of materialism. Here's how we can take steps toward that freedom. 1. Shift your perspective. Recognize that true value doesn't come from things but from relationships, character, and faith. Ask yourself, what truly brings me lasting joy? Is it the things I own or the love I share? 2. Practice generosity. Sharing what we have, whether it's money, time, or resources, breaks the grip of greed. Generosity creates connection and reminds us that we're stewards, not owners of our blessings. 3. Simplify your life. Adopting minimalist practices helps us refocus on what really matters. By letting go of excess, we make room for gratitude and peace. A story of transformation. Let me tell you about Sarah, a young professional who once believed that a bigger paycheck and a luxury lifestyle were the keys to happiness. But after facing burnout, she chose a simpler path, downsizing her home, donating to causes she believed in, and prioritizing time with loved ones. Sarah says, "I finally feel free. I no longer chase things, I cherish moments." This story is just one example of how letting go of materialism can lead to peace. Now, let's reflect. What's one thing in your life that you can let go of today? An object, a habit, or even a mindset that's keeping you from peace? Take that step and see how it opens the door to greater freedom and joy. Remember, Jesus doesn't ask us to give up everything to make us suffer. He invites us to let go so we can make room for something far greater, the peace and fulfillment only He can provide. The trap of pride. Understanding pride. Pride is a subtle yet powerful trap that often goes unnoticed in our lives. It's the belief that we are better, smarter, or more deserving than others. A focus on self that leaves little room for God or others. Jesus warns us of pride in the gospel. For those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. Luke 14:11. This isn't just a warning but a loving reminder. True greatness comes from humility, not self-importance. The impact of pride. On a personal level, pride isolates us. It builds walls instead of bridges, making it difficult to accept feedback, admit mistakes, or grow. Pride whispers, "You don't need anyone else," but in reality, it leads to loneliness and stagnation. It also fosters arrogance and entitlement, where we take credit for our successes while dismissing the contributions of others or the blessings of God. On society as a whole, pride divides communities and nations, fueling conflict and oppression. History shows that when groups or leaders become consumed by pride, they often seek power at the expense of others, leading to injustice and suffering. Breaking free from pride, Jesus offers a different way, a path of humility that brings freedom, connection, and peace. Here's how we can overcome pride. 1. Embrace humility. Humility isn't thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less. It's recognizing that every talent, gift, and achievement comes from God. Take time to reflect. What blessings in my life have I taken credit for, when they are truly gifts from God? 2. Serve others. Jesus demonstrated humility when he washed the feet of his disciples, an act of service usually reserved for the lowliest of servants. Serving others, whether it's through acts of kindness, volunteering, or simply listening, reminds us that we are here to lift others up, not just ourselves. 3. Cultivate gratitude. Gratitude shifts our focus from I earned this to I've been blessed with this. It opens our eyes to the people, circumstances, and grace that contribute to our success. Start a gratitude practice. Each day write down 3 things you are thankful for that others or God have provided. A story of transformation. Let me share the story of Mark, a successful entrepreneur who once believed his achievements were entirely his own doing. He often dismissed his team's efforts and rarely acknowledged God's blessings. Over time, this pride left him isolated and burned out. But one day, he humbled himself, thanked his team, credited God for his success, and started serving in his community. Mark says, "I thought humility would make me weak, but it made me stronger. It deepened our relationships and renewed my purpose." Mark's story shows us that humility doesn't diminish us, it enriches us. A reflective challenge. Now, take a moment to think, is there an area in your life where pride might be holding you back? Maybe it's in a relationship, at work, or even in your faith journey. What's one simple act of humility you can take this week? Perhaps serving someone, apologizing, or sharing credit? A loving reminder. Remember, Jesus calls us to humility not to shame us, but to free us. Pride weighs us down, but humility lifts us up, closer to God, to others, and to the peace we long for. True humility doesn't make us less, it makes us whole. The trap of fear and doubt. Understanding fear and doubt. Fear and doubt are emotions we've all experienced. They creep into our hearts, whispering, "What if things go wrong?" Or, "Are you sure God will come through?" These feelings can paralyze us, keeping us stuck in cycles of worry and hesitation. Jesus, in his infinite love, offers reassurance. "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled and do not be afraid." John 14:27. His peace is unlike anything the world can offer. It's a peace that calms our fears and strengthens our trust in his promises. The impact of fear and doubt. On a personal level, fear holds us back from pursuing dreams, deepening relationships, or stepping into God's calling. It tells us to play it safe, leading to stagnation. Doubt often accompanies fear, causing us to question God's presence, promises, or plan. These feelings can create anxiety, robbing us of the joy and freedom God desires for us. On society as a whole, fear-driven decisions lead to exclusion, xenophobia, and division. Doubt undermines collective efforts to solve challenges like poverty, inequality, and climate change, as we lose faith in each other and in the possibility of positive change. Breaking free from fear and doubt. Jesus doesn't want fear and doubt to define us. He invites us to trust him, even when the path ahead feels uncertain. Here's how. 1. Strengthen your faith. Immerse yourself in God's promises through Scripture. Verses like, "Do not be afraid, for I am with you," Isaiah 41:10, remind us that we're never alone. Reflect on God's faithfulness in your life, moments when He guided, provided, or comforted you. Let these memories fortify your faith. 2. Take small steps. Trust is built gradually. Start by trusting God in smaller areas. Whether it's a decision at work, a step in your relationships, or an act of kindness, each step reinforces your faith, preparing you for greater challenges. 3. Pray for courage. Prayer is our lifeline to God. When fear or doubt overwhelms, turn to Him with an open heart. Ask Him to replace your worries with His peace, and your doubts with confidence in His love. A story of courage and faith. Let me tell you about Lisa, a single mom who struggled with fear after losing her job. She doubted whether she could provide for her children, but instead of giving in to despair, she turned to God, praying daily for guidance and courage. Step by step, Lisa trusted God, applying for jobs, accepting help from her church, and leaning into her faith. Today, Lisa has a stable job and often says, "God's peace carried me when I couldn't carry myself." Her story reminds us that even in our darkest moments, God is there, inviting us to trust Him. A reflective challenge. Take a moment to reflect. What fear or doubt is holding you back today? Maybe it's a fear of failure, rejection, or the unknown. What's one small step of trust you can take? It could be a prayer, a conversation, or simply choosing to move forward despite your fears. A loving reminder. Fear doesn't have to define your life. Doubt doesn't have to dictate your decisions. Jesus offers us peace, not the fleeting kind the world gives, but a deep, abiding peace that calms the storm within us. Faith doesn't eliminate fear, but it empowers us to move forward anyway, trusting that God is with us every step of the way. The trap of judgment. Understanding judgment. Judgment is something we all fall into. It's easy to see the faults of others and point them out, while overlooking our own shortcomings. Jesus gently warns us against this behavior. Do not judge, or you too will be judged. Matthew 7:1. Judgment doesn't just harm others, it hardens our own hearts. It creates walls of division and leaves little room for love, understanding, or grace. The impact of judgment. On a personal level, judging others harshly damages relationships, as it creates a sense of superiority that distances us from those we're meant to love. It also stifles personal growth, as we focus on external flaws, instead of reflecting on how we can grow ourselves. On society as a whole, judgment fosters discrimination, prejudice, and inequality, perpetuating cycles of division. It blocks collaboration and understanding, making it harder for people of different backgrounds or beliefs to work together toward common goals. Judgment creates a world where walls are built instead of bridges, leaving communities fractured and individuals isolated. Breaking free from judgment. Jesus calls us to a higher standard, not one of condemnation but of love and compassion. Here's how we can overcome the trap of judgment. 1. Self-reflection. Before criticizing others, pause and examine your own heart. Ask yourself, am I projecting my own insecurities? Is there a similar flaw I need to address in myself? Jesus reminds us, why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? Matthew 2. Practice empathy. Judgment often comes from a lack of understanding. When we take the time to see the world through someone else's eyes, their struggles, fears, and experiences, it becomes harder to judge and easier to show compassion. 3. Follow Jesus' example. Jesus showed compassion and forgiveness even to those who wronged him. When we choose forgiveness over judgment, we reflect his love to the world. One powerful act of grace can transform a relationship, a community, or even a life. A story of reconciliation. I'd like to share the story of two neighbors, Sarah and Emily, who had been at odds for years over a property dispute, each yelling, the other harshly refusing to speak. But one day, Sarah decided to extend an olive branch, a simple gesture of bringing over fresh baked bread. That act of kindness opened the door for dialogue, and over time, they not only resolved their differences, but became close friends. Sarah later said, It wasn't easy to let go of my anger, but I realized holding on to judgment was only hurting me. This story reminds us that choosing grace over judgment can heal even the deepest divisions. A reflective challenge. Take a moment to think, is there someone in your life you've judged unfairly? Perhaps a coworker, a family member, or even a stranger. What's one way you can extend grace to them today? It could be a kind word, an act of forgiveness, or simply choosing to see them in a new light. A loving reminder. Judgment closes the door to love, but grace swings it wide open. When we let go of judgment, we free ourselves to build deeper relationships and foster understanding. Jesus doesn't call us to ignore wrongdoing, but to respond with compassion, not condemnation. Let's choose to love as He loves, offering grace in the face of imperfection, both theirs and ours. The trap of complacency. Understanding complacency. Complacency is a silent trap, one that creeps in when life feels comfortable or good enough. It's the tendency to settle, to avoid risks, and to ignore the call to grow and serve. Jesus addresses this directly in Revelation. So, because you are lukewarm, neither hot nor cold, I am about to spit you out of my mouth. Revelation 3:16. These strong words remind us that living passively is not what we're called to do. Jesus invites us to live passionately, with purpose, and to use the gifts we've been given for His glory. The impact of complacency. On a personal level, complacency leads to spiritual stagnation, a sense of going through the motions without true growth or purpose. It makes us miss opportunities to make a meaningful impact in our families, workplaces, and communities. On society as a whole, when complacency takes hold, injustices persist because no one takes action to address them. Innovation and progress are stifled, leaving pressing global challenges like poverty, climate change, and inequality unresolved. Complacency doesn't just hinder individual potential, it holds back entire communities and societies. Breaking free from complacency. Jesus calls us to a life of active faith, one where we step out of our comfort zones and pursue growth for His kingdom. Here's how to break free. 1. Renew your vision. Spend time seeking God's purpose for your life. Ask Him to reveal where He wants you to grow, serve, or make an impact. Remember, His plans are always greater than our own. Reflect. Am I living fully in alignment with God's purpose, or have I settled into what feels easy or safe? 2. Step out in faith. Growth requires action, even when it feels uncomfortable. Say yes to opportunities that challenge you, whether it's serving in a new way, sharing your faith, or addressing an injustice you've noticed. Trust in Jesus' promise. Surely I am with you always to the very end of the age. Matthew 28:20. 3. Foster accountability. Surround yourself with people who encourage growth, friends, mentors, or a church community that challenges you to live boldly for Christ. Accountability helps keep complacency at a story of transformation. Let me share the story of James, a teacher who once felt stuck in a routine, teaching the same lessons year after year. He knew he could do more, but feared stepping outside his comfort zone. One day, after much prayer, he decided to start an after-school mentorship program for at-risk students. Though it's daunting, James said, "I've never felt more alive or connected to God's purpose for my life." Today, his program has changed countless lives, not just for his students, but for himself as well. James' story reminds us that when we take even a small step toward growth, God multiplies our efforts for His kingdom. A reflective challenge. Take a moment to reflect. Where have you become complacent in your life? Is it in your spiritual journey, your relationships, or your work? What's one step you can take this week, however small, to reignite your passion and align with God's purpose? A loving reminder. Complacency feels comfortable, but is a counterfeit peace. True fulfillment comes from stepping out in faith and pursuing the will God has planned for you. Jesus doesn't call us to settle. He calls us to live boldly, to grow continually, and to love courageously. Let's choose today to leave complacency behind and step into the abundant life He has for us. Conclusion. Recap the 5 traps. As we come to the end of this journey, let's take a moment to reflect on the 5 spiritual traps we've uncovered together. 1. Materialism, the endless pursuit of possessions that leaves us feeling empty. 2. Pride, the belief in our superiority that isolates us from others and from God. 3. Fear and doubt, the barriers that keep us from trusting God's plan and stepping into His peace. 4. Judgment, the harshness that divides us and blinds us to love and grace. 5. Complacency, the comfort that stifles our growth and purpose. Each of these traps pulls us away from the abundant life Jesus desires for us. But the good news is that through Him, we can overcome them. Jesus' promise. Let's remember the powerful promise Jesus made to us. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. This peace isn't fleeting or shallow. It's deep, transformative, and eternal. It's a peace that carries us through life storms and strengthens us to rise above these traps. Now, it's your turn. Take a moment to reflect. Which of these traps resonates most with your life right now? Is it materialism, pride, fear, judgment, or wherever you find yourself, know this. Jesus is with you, ready to help you take the first step toward freedom. So here's the challenge. Commit to taking just one step today. It could be an act of generosity, a moment of humility, a prayer for courage, an act of grace, or a decision to grow. Small steps lead to big changes, and Jesus is walking alongside you every step of the way. Imagine a world where we, as individuals and as a global community, break free from these traps, a world where we live out Jesus' love, grace, and purpose in our daily lives. This isn't just a dream, it's a reality we can create together by choosing to follow Him. When we overcome these traps, not just as individuals but as humanity, we create a world where Jesus' peace truly reigns. Let's take that first step today together.